All right, in this explainer, we're going to explore a powerful, kind of hidden pattern that shapes just about everything, from blockbuster movies all the way to global economies. Okay, let's dive right in.
Have you ever stopped to think about this? Why is it that in almost any situation, a tiny number of things seem to be responsible for, well, most of the results? This weird imbalance shows up absolutely everywhere. Let me show you what I mean. It's pretty wild.
Okay, let's take a legend like Steven Spielberg. He's directed over 30 movies, right? But think about it. A small handful, Jaws, E.T., Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, those are the ones that really define his entire legacy. And when you do the math, that's about 20% of his films, creating the vast majority of his cultural impact. Crazy!
And this pattern, it pops up in the most unexpected places. Think about something as profound as religion. There are over 4,000 distinct religions in the world, but get this. Just 3, Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism, make up a whopping 72% of the world's entire religious population. Just 3.
Or let's bring it down to a business level. Look at this blog, for example. Out of 7 different topics they write about, just 2 of them are pulling in a massive 76% of all the traffic. And the other 5 combined, they're barely even a blip on the radar. So what in the world is going on here?
Well, this phenomenon actually has a name. It's the 80-20 rule. And trust me, once you really get it, you're going to start seeing it absolutely everywhere. You won't be able to unsee it.
Okay, so the official fancy name is the Pareto principle, but yeah, most of us just know it as the 80-20 rule. And the core idea is super simple. A small chunk of inputs, what some people call the vital few, is responsible for the lion's share of the outputs. Now, it's not always a perfect 80-20 split, of course, but this super lopsided relationship is shockingly consistent across the board.
So where did this all come from? Well, it started with an Italian economist, Vilfredo Pareto, way back in 1906. He just happened to notice that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by only 20% of the people. Then, decades later, a management consultant named Joseph Juran took this idea, applied it to business, and gave it the name the Pareto Principle, and he used it to completely revolutionize quality control.
For a long, long time, this 80-20 rule seemed to apply to just about everything. It was king. But then, the internet came along. Suddenly, we have infinite choices, endless virtual shelf space. Surely, that must have broken the rule, right?
Well, that's what a lot of people thought. In 2004, a writer named Chris Anderson came along with his long tail theory. He argued that the internet completely changed the game because it suddenly became profitable to sell all the niche stuff, all the things that would never fit in a physical store. Businesses like Amazon or Netflix could now make a killing from the massive variety in this long tail of demand.
And this set up a really fascinating debate. So on one side, you have the 80-20 rule, which is all about the popular head of the market, the blockbusters, the big hits. And on the other side, you've got the long tail, which is all about the vast number of niche items. So, which one is it? Are these two ideas at war with each other?
And the answer is a surprising no. They're not in conflict at all. And this is the key. They're actually 2 complementary theories describing different parts of the very same curve. The Pareto principle describes the powerful, popular head, and the long tail theory describes the vast, sprawling tail. They work together perfectly.
Okay, so if this 80-20 distribution is just a fact of life, it leads to a bigger question, doesn't it? What's the engine underneath it all? What's the hidden mechanism that consistently creates these unequal outcomes?
It turns out the core principle was described perfectly nearly 2,000 years ago. This single line pretty much captures a fundamental dynamic of how systems and even societies really work.
It's called the Matthew effect, but you can really just think of it as the rich get richer phenomenon. The idea is simple. Those who start with even a small advantage tend to attract more advantages, which creates a feedback loop where success just breeds more success. In network science, they call it preferential attachment. It's the same idea.
Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine 3 projects that start with tiny, almost identical advantages. Now, if their growth is proportional to their current size, those small differences don't just add up, they compound. A small lead becomes a bigger one, which then spirals and snowballs into a massive, unbridgeable gap. That is the Matthew effect in action.
So let's recap. We've talked about the 80-20 rule, the long tail, and this rich get richer Matthew effect. They all feel like different ideas, right? But what if I told you they're all just different ways of looking at the same deep underlying structure?
That underlying structure is called a power law distribution. Now, I know that sounds really technical, but stick with me. Think of it like earthquakes. For every one massive, city-leveling quake, there are thousands and thousands of tiny tremors you can't even feel. A power law is just a relationship that naturally produces these lopsided outcomes, where a tiny few at the top hold a totally disproportionate share.
So, here is the big reveal, the main thing to get. These are not competing theories. The Pareto principle, the long tail, the Matthew effect, and even another one called Price's law, which looks at productivity. They're all just different names for the exact same fundamental power law shape.
Okay, this is all fascinating stuff. But so what? What does any of this mean for you? How can we take this big, abstract idea and actually make it practical and powerful in our own lives?
Let's zoom in on that Price's law I mentioned. It applies this power law pattern directly to people and how productive we are, and it says that the square root of the number of people in an organization does 50% of the work. Now check this out. As a company grows, the high-impact work becomes even more concentrated. In a 100-person company, just 10 people are doing half of all the valuable work. Just 10.
So, how do you actually use this? Well, it all comes down to ruthless focus. First, you have to identify your vital 20%, the tasks, the products, the customers that are genuinely driving 80% of your results. Second, once you find that high leverage spot, you double down on it. You master it. And third, you apply the same thinking to people. Surround yourself with the 20% of collaborators who add 80% of the value.
And that leaves us with one powerful question for you to think about. In your career, your business, or even just in your personal life, what is your vital 20% that's generating the majority of your success and your happiness? Because finding it and then actually focusing on it could change everything.